Hello YouTube, this is Ben Gessel. This is my 15th video. Not sure when I'll stop counting number of videos here, but sometime. Not sure when. Today is September 19th, 2016. It's at 10:29 p.m. It's getting a little later, so this subject, don't mean to be too dramatic here, but this subject does apply a little bit to the later evening and early morning. Anyway, this has to do with phobias and the supernatural and also the imagination. All things that I have some interest in. I know that most people that know me would probably say that I'm much more of a fantasy adventure fan than I am a fan of anything frightening, horror, that sort of thing. And science fiction is, sure. Science fiction adventures here and there, sure. Most people that know me would say, yeah, that's the case. Fantasy adventure is probably the big one. And the funny thing is, that's true. It's just that if a frightening movie is done well, or a frightening video game, and there are many that are not, there are many that are very just dwell on dumb, in my opinion, very dumb ideas. Just a blood fest. Those kinds of things are dumb. If there's a frightening movie that's done well, and it has, there are elements that really do kind of make you think a little bit. I prefer frightening movies that are more imaginative and more transportive. They take you to their place, just like fantasy, but maybe it just takes you more of a maybe you just feel a little bit more, what's going to happen? Nothing too evil, of course. Nothing too over the top. But yeah, if there's a well-made movie that's frightening, sure, I like that kind of stuff. And it's just, but yeah, there's just a lot of, well, anyway, more on that here in a bit. So, here's some of the phobias that I have, some more than others. And as I go through these, I'll talk about how they've affected me in dreams, as well as maybe some here and there as I personally observed my life. Certain things that might touch on the supernatural just a little bit, or basically the other world, so to speak. So let's just start with a concept like darkness, or being in the dark, or a fear of the dark. So this was something that I very much had when I was little, and some of my dreams actually revolved around that very subject. I was afraid of what might be my closet when I was a boy, and it just wasn't. I didn't know what was in my closet. It might have been some kind of monster. Well, I don't know. And I know that that's a very common fear, especially that kids have. I had a dream, I think when I was about 11 or 12, when I learned that there was a boy that was living supposedly in my closet. And he was just a confused, sad boy, lonely, and he was just happy to chat just for a little bit. And so after I had that dream, I thought a little differently of the dark. What's the dark? Yeah, maybe, I realized that, you never know. Maybe it's just that boy. Maybe he just wants to chat. So I just said hi very softly, and bit by bit, I just became less afraid of the dark. Everybody overcomes their fear of the dark in different ways, of course. And for very sensitive kids, it can be tough. And sometimes we don't entirely lose it for some people. And on this note, phobias can be addressed. It can be addressed very surface level, and I think that you don't have to have a psychologist necessarily talk about this. And I'm not a psychologist, but of course I have many interests in things, and so um, I know that there are many people that say they don't have any fears of anything as adults, um, or whatever fears they do have, very just minuscule. Um, but fear of the dark is something that I think is fairly common for specific reasons. Touching on the supernatural, it's true. Without getting too much into this, if you were to compare a very light room, a room filled with light, so just very, very bright, um, and it was just very clean and very, again, very beautiful, the chances of supernaturally, in the supernatural world, and again, this is from my perspective, the chances of there being evil spirits there, demons, um, in reality, uh, very, very little, very small percentage. They wouldn't feel comfortable in that kind of environment where there's, especially when it's more of a, people are praying and trying to do good things and, um, you know, sacred places. Demons don't want to be there. They don't want to be there. They don't want to be anywhere uh, where Christ is mentioned and when he's worshipped. And so light places are great places to be. Dark places, conversely, there's a better chance of demons being in those places. Now, I know you're thinking at this point, so there's no such thing as a boogeyman. There's no such thing as monsters under your bed. But demons existing in the darkness. Yeah. Yes. But the thing is that they are, in my understanding, limited what they can do. If you're talking about little guys, little kids, contrary to what Hollywood talks about and all the themes they explore in that area, kids, little kids especially, are very, very much protected by angels. And I definitely 100% believe that to be true. The question is, at what point, and when does, well, that point would be about 8 years old, but demons are very limited what they can do. Very limited. And, the older the person gets, if they do evil, bad things, the more evil things they do, the more evil becomes a part of their nature. It's a adventure. This is a very dark subject, but what once was feared eventually becomes embraced. And so, yeah, there are people out there that are so evil that demons are around them all the time. And, that's a pretty scary thought. But yeah, so, but yeah, the fear of the darkness, it's one of the biggies. It makes a lot of sense. Of course, there's a practical thing, like you don't want to stumble and fall, you don't want to hurt yourself in the dark, which is why we get flashlights and turn on the light and things. But yeah, I mean, there still is that side to us where we are afraid of the dark because we can't see anything, but we're also afraid of the dark because some part of our psyche knows that if there are menacing spirits, there are spirits that are up to our demise, eventual demise, they're going to exist in the shadows, the darkness, because that's where they try to hide from God. And so that one fear is probably more primal than most any other fear I know of. It's one of the oldest fears known to man. It's fear of the darkness. Going on here, some of these fears are, not quite as deep, but witches. Now, I'm sure that some of you guys have read Roald Dahl's The Witches. I'm sure that yeah, Angelica Houston made a great Fahrenheit witch. Very, very much so. Yeah. Witches don't necessarily always have to have dark hair and fair skin, although it's a very striking look to have dark hair and fair skin. But, and yes, people say there's real life witches, whatever that means. Basically, the kind of witches I'm talking about are the, well, a witch is evil. So we are specifically referring, of course, in fantasy to the long-nosed, pimply witches. Of course, they're hideous looking. But yes, it's true, there are real-life witches that are very dark individuals. Some more than others, but they're all, on some level, involved with things that they shouldn't be. So, but yeah, I've had some dreams of witches. Definitely quite a few, depending on how you look at the term witch. But they can be very, very frightening. For me, they weren't as, it wasn't always so much the traditional witch that came into my dreams. It was always just a very frightening looking woman, for instance. But you know, if someone had, for instance, recurring dreams of witches, it's nice because at least a witch you can confront physically. If you battle a witch and you put your fist down and say, I'm not afraid of you anymore. As a boy, teenager, whatever, probably especially if you're a boy, if you get to the point where you can stand up to that witch, that's a great thing. Great thing. But, you know, some dreams do pass with time. Fears of the darkness, again, because it's much more nebulous. And you can't fight the darkness. You don't know what's there. It's a very different animal. And it's, yeah. So, anyway, going on here. Fear of fire and hot surfaces. I got burned just a little bit when I was little. And it was such a painful experience that ever since that point, I have had a little bit of a phobia of hot surfaces. I guess I just learned how to, I've just become more comfortable over time somewhat with different kinds of heat, especially with fire. I'm not as afraid of fire as I used to be. Now, deep fryers, you know, yeah, those things are hot. Any hot surfaces, sure, I really make sure I know what I'm doing. Hot pads and everything. Tongs, you know. But gotta hand it to those chefs, man. The chefs are, it's a dangerous job sometimes. And, you know, it's a good chance to get burned sometimes, so be careful. So yeah, it's just one of those practical fears though, like fear of heights. Fear of heights. That's another fear too. And for me, I don't have those kinds of things, those fears and dreams as often. It's more just getting up on the high dive when you're younger and trying to dive off the high dive, that kind of thing. And, you know, cliff jumping and making, you know, that sort of thing. So, you gotta be careful with those guys. With cliff jumping, you gotta be careful, guys. Very, very careful. Seriously. But, fears of weapons, guns, weapons, it's very periodic in my dreams. Witches, for instance, led more to the imagination. Fire, a little bit. Weapons, yeah, these are more just kind of fears of death, fears of pain. They're not especially complex or hard to understand. But sure, there's the fear of, you know, being imprisoned or being somewhere. Some crazy guy is going to take a, you know, it's going to saw you in half or something, you know. That's very understandable to be afraid in that kind of situation. But, you know, movies that involve that kind of stuff, it's more of a obvious, cheap thing. It's nothing really special about it. Now, bullies, you know, when I saw Back to the Future for the first time with Biff Tannen, and there's all kinds of bullies in movies. people think it's an overused idea. I don't think it is. There's, I think a bully is essentially a, another kind of villain. Maybe a villain that's often younger, or a villain that isn't maybe as quite as threatening in a spiritual sense, especially. Bullies are more like minions or henchmen. Oftentimes, they're not often the head guy. It's a bad guy. Occasionally, there might be, but I think bullies for boys, for young boys, that's where sure. I mean, you confront them in real life on occasion. Bullies are very real. They can be very merciless, laugh at you for anything you try to tell them, to say knock it off or whatever, stop doing whatever. They could laugh at you. They could hurt you. If they're really out of sorts, or at least get in fights. And so bullies are. It's very understandable to have fears of bullies. The thing is, bullies, the concept of bullies, it also, of course, goes on in life, not just when you're a boy, but when you get older. And whether or not it's physical or something else, a bully definitely is someone who is not necessarily just physically bigger, stronger, but domineering. And we can talk about more of an adult type of bullies as well, manipulative, and I think there's something called I've heard of people that are kind of like emotional vampires, that sort of thing. They kind of suck the life out of people, and these kinds of things. And it's all very dark. But essentially, again, we're talking about it doesn't. The classic idea of a bully is like smelling like Biff Tannen, sure. But I think that when they crop up in dreams, oftentimes, most of the time, it's because of some prior bully, someone in the past. And you just have to try to either forget about it or try to tell yourself, no, you handled things the best you could. It was always their problem. You're not physically weak. You're not a coward. You just need to put it behind you. This person was very out of sorts, sort of thing. Very unhappy. Found it. They had to. If they had a reason, whatever the reason was to give you a bad time, they did that, and just try not to let it bother you anymore. It doesn't really matter. It's so it's great that you made it through that experience, kind of thing. So, but anyway, that's something else that at least for me, these are all things that at least have come up at least on occasion in my dreams, and I'm aware of. Bullies can be very merciless, though. They can tease you, and this will tie into some other things that I'm talking about here in just a bit. So I mentioned, weapons, guns, sure. Drowning. It's pretty straightforward. Of course, we're afraid of drowning. I love it in a dream when you can start breathing underwater. It's a great thing, and that kind of takes that fear away. Oh, I can breathe underwater. Nice. There goes that fear. So, in real life, oh sure. Mentioned heights. Bees and wasps. Now, bees and wasps for me, like insects, some other people, but I'm not really afraid of spiders. Jumping spiders, maybe, but I haven't been around them. Bees and wasps, for me, are another. So, fear the dark, when I was little, especially, and bees and wasps. Witches a little bit, but bees and wasps, because they can fly, because they hurt like heck when they sting you. Sure, very frightening. They come up in my dreams quite a bit in the past. All bees and wasps of different shapes and sizes and colors, rainbow colors. It's like, sheesh, I mean, Toucan Sam. Now, Toucan Sam, Fruit Loops, use every single color in the world. I've seen wasps with all those colors and more colors in my dreams. Big, 10-foot long wasps that look like for 20 feet they're going to eat me or something. Like, just incredibly frightening, monstrous, kinds of things. And And so yeah, that phobia for me goes a little deeper. They can fly. If they can fly, they hurt really bad. This is why I'm concerned about things like Asian giant hornets a little bit. Those guys need to be exterminated, taken out. Get the National Guard, get some flamethrowers. Those things are nasty. I'm far more concerned about Asian giant hornets and Japanese giant hornets than I am about tarantula wasps. Tarantula wasps mind their own business. It hurts like the dickens, I'm sure, if you guys ever got stung by one of those things. But they leave people alone. They're after tarantulas, and that's it. So now we get to yes, you knew we were gonna get here. Clowns and dolls and puppets and jugglers that are scary looking and mimes and jesters and all that. I don't really have dreams with those guys too much, but it's something where I think I definitely understand the fear. Because I mean, it's just the fear has been. If I ever dreamed about those guys in a scary way, it really didn't ever sit in too deeply with me. I'm not really sure why, but I think it has something to do with the feeling that I was always at least able to physically handle myself against a clown or something along those lines. Clowns to me have never seemed to be very physically powerful. I suppose you could say the same thing with witches, but witches have magic and things. So, so clowns have never been very strong to me. They've never been very physically powerful. Now, of course, if you had a clowns that were very big and evil, then I guess it'd be different. The clown is just a person that has makeup on and some stuff. So clowns have never been, they haven't been my dreams that much. But, yeah, I mean, the huge grin, they're always smiling, and everything's a joke to them. It's like a bully, but just more psychotic, or more disturbing kind of bully. Bully meets an entertainer, depending on how you look at it. A jokester, someone who doesn't take anything seriously, or someone who doesn't take anything seriously. Clown can be thought of that way. The Joker. And the jesters are very clever, I guess. They're sometimes seen as more slender, nimble than a big buffoonish clown. Whatever, how you're looking at it, these jokesters, I've dreamed about bullies more than I've dreamed about clowns. But I think that they still, they come up from time to time because of their white face, because of the emotion that they hide. And, increasingly, kids are scared of these guys. I think the way, for instance, to have more, have clowns come back into, have them be as popular as it used to be. There's two things need to happen. I think we need to kind of just accept the idea of the scary clown as being something more fun. The scary clowns are just fictional. The scary clown should be something like a vampire, or something like that, where, in a way, if you embrace when something no longer becomes shocking, if it loses its shock value, if it's frightening, like a clown, it's easier to not be as scared by it. The first time you see a clown who has a gigantic axe, he's gonna chop off someone's head when he's not looking. Well, I'm just that doesn't happen, but the first time that you see that happening, you're like, oh my gosh, you never see clowns the same way again with the gigantic grin. But so that there's a lot to that subject because of the emotional chameleon that a clown can be. Well, I should say a poker face. Well, not a poker face, but very much you can't tell what's really going on behind the white makeup and the smile. That kind of fear, like a mask. So, but yeah, for me, it comes up on occasion, but not a whole heck of a lot. Of course, you have other things that other phobias. Everybody has the phobia of, oh my gosh, you're in class and you don't have any pants on, right? Sure, but and there's the phobia of you late for class, you miss a class, you miss the final. There's phobias, work and school, phobias, other kinds of phobias that are more real life. Sure, absolutely. Um, I've also had some dreams of the ogre type or the giant who's evil, is trying to get you. Um, they tend to happen more when I think you're little. And I don't know what the solution is really to get rid of those dreams. I think you just outgrow them when you get bigger. When you're small, when you're a little boy, it's tough. I think I'm very much in favor of not showing particularly frightening movies to anybody younger than 9 or 10. Um, ish, give or take, a few years depending on the kid, how sensitive they are. But yeah, particularly frightening monsters, are something that kids shouldn't see. They just don't have the means by which they can cope with that kind of intensity, that intensity, how intense those creatures are, how frightening they are. Dragons, I think, some of these things, there's some of these kinds of creatures, some creatures have just been done so much in the media. So much. I think zombies are done. I've already said zombies, they are done. Unless you have a different take on them, which, yes, okay, whatever. But dragons, I think, still, it's such a gold mine. There's so many other things that can be done, not just smog and not just Furcraig and Dungeons and Dragons. Dragons can be so many different things, so many different colors, so many different. I don't know. But I've had a few dragon dreams, and they show up here and there. They're not the most frightening dreams necessarily, but I'm able to usually escape from them pretty well. I've never killed a dragon in my dream, only in video games. Now, mentioned a few other things here. I'll probably mention space next. Space, and I've had some dreams about space, and I think the phobia is, of course, dying out in space. There's no oxygen, which is kind of it's the thing that is one of the most. There's the highest unknown factor, other than like the darkness. We can't see in the dark. We need light, and we don't know what's out there beyond what we can see. And so there's a little bit of fear there, sure. Aliens, that's sort of aliens. I've never dreamed of aliens. Just space, just the vastness of space. Not being able to leaving Earth, not being able to come back to Earth again, or getting lost. Oh my gosh, So, anyway, the last thing to mention here, my own psyche, really. And I'm sure there's probably some phobias that I haven't mentioned, but these are some of the big ones. Last one is ghosts and demons, and again, I'll just be careful what I say here. And so, a lot of things that are phobias are irrational. They basically are irrational. Some phobias make sense to have at least some degree of, if you're way up high on the ladder, you probably want to have a good sense of balance, especially if it's windy out. You want to watch your step. If you fall, it could be bad. So it makes sense to have a fear of heights to a certain extent. That should be a pretty common phobia. Ghosts and demons. I know this whole subject, along with, I don't know which is, but ghosts and demons and things border on the religious. Why? Because, in our collective world, humanities, ghosts are very commonly encountered phenomena, subject among many different cultures, peoples, as are demons and angels too. So rather than going the religious route, which I could, it's, for me personally, yeah, I've had dreams of ghosts, and I would say probably some kind of demonic kind of entity. Those are few in number. I think the vast majority of the time I just saw a scary movie, very scary movie, and I was very, very much in my psyche. That's all it came down to, really. So it's just that if there's any one phobia that's kind of my personal, um, so Harry Potter was afraid of Dementors. Dementors, yeah, sure, of course. There's like if I had a single biggest fear that I might still have, and I think I know a lot of folks would share the same fear. It would be a fear of a demon, because in my understanding of the world, my understanding of how things are, demons are very real. Dragons are fictional. Dinosaurs are real. Dragons are fictional. Basilisks are fiction. Vampires, fiction. Again, all these things, but demons are real, and that's one of the reasons why. Yeah, I mean, so I don't think about them. Try to think about them. When I want to see something frightening movie that has to do with that whole subject, I just try to be careful these days about what I see, because I'm aware that there's real stuff going on with that subject, and it's important that it's kind of like space. We're talking about something that is a little bit in the unknown arena. I've never seen a demon in my entire life. It's only been in dreams on occasion, maybe just a handful of times. What does a demon look like? I don't know. They can be shapeshifters. They don't have to have horns and stuff, but it's, again, I can't think of hardly anything that to me that's more frightening than that subject, though, because they represent evil. They represent the very definition of evil, more than dragons, far more than dragons, or anything else. Aliens might sometimes come up pretty close. Maybe Pennywise. Pennywise is essentially a demonic clown. Yeah. But anyway, feel free to leave any thoughts or comments you guys have below. I have seen shows like Paranormal. Let's see. It's the Pennsylvania Paranormal Research Group. Paranormal State. I've seen Paranormal State. I've seen shows like Haunting, and not as much last while. It's really only been it was a while back. I saw it more regularly, but when you don't know something and you're a more sensitive person emotionally, on the one hand, more sensitive folks are more, I think, tend to have phobias more for obvious reasons. But it's that fear of the unknown. If we were to all know things as God knows things, we would have no fear of demons. And so there is a confidence and courage that comes with learning and knowledge and experience. But until we gain that knowledge, that experience, that learning, yeah, we're gonna go through some stuff. So, but that's kind of that subject on my end. Something that it's interesting, intriguing, frightening. Something that I try to not dwell on. Again, I know fantasy adventure is probably a healthier indulgence, a healthier hobby, for sure, because it draws some good things than frightening stuff. So, anyway, and feel free to leave comments below. I'll talk to you guys later.